One of the most important questions when someone is thinking about moving to Europe is this: how much money do you actually need to survive the first month? On the internet, you often see two completely different versions. Some people say that you can live in Europe with 500 euros, while others claim that you need 3,000 or 4,000 euros to get started. So the real question comes up: how much money do you truly need when you arrive for the first time? Because the first month is different from the rest. You have to pay for accommodation, rental deposit, food, transportation, documents, phone service, and many expenses that are not always mentioned when someone talks about emigrating to Europe. In this video, we are going to analyze how much money you really need to live your first month in Spain, explaining the most common expenses that many people face when they arrive for the first time. The idea of this video is to be completely honest with the numbers, so that you can have a much clearer idea before making the decision to emigrate. Because moving to another country can be a great opportunity, but it is also important to plan the financial side well from the beginning. Hello, foreign friends. I'm Levi, and I'm part of LivinEurope, where we share real information for people who are thinking about living, studying, or starting a new life in Europe. One of the most common mistakes when someone plans to emigrate is underestimating how much money is needed upon arrival, especially during the first month. Many people calculate only the rent or the monthly cost of living, but they forget something important: the initial expenses when you arrive for the first time. For example, the first month normally includes the rental deposit, the first housing payment, food, transportation, phone service, some administrative procedures, and other unexpected expenses that do not always appear in videos or internet guides. That is why in this video, we are going to analyze how much money you really need for the first month living in Spain, one of the European countries where the most people from Latin America decide to emigrate. The idea is to do it in a clear and honest way, showing the most common expenses that many people usually have when they arrive for the first time. But before we begin, tell me something in the comments. From which country are you thinking about emigrating to Europe? And if you are interested in learning more about what living in Europe is really like, do not forget to subscribe to the channel, because at LivinEurope, we share useful information for those who want to begin a new chapter on this continent. Now yes, let's see how much money you really need for your first month living in Spain. 1. Accommodation, the biggest expense of the first month. The most important expense when you arrive in Spain for the first time is usually accommodation. In big cities like Madrid or Barcelona, renting a full apartment can be quite expensive, especially if you have just arrived and still do not have a work contract or rental history. That is why many people who arrive for the first time choose to rent a room in a shared apartment. The price of a room is usually around 400 to 700 euros per month, depending on the city and the area. 2. Rental deposit, an expense many people forget. One of the expenses that many people do not calculate before emigrating is the rental deposit. In Spain, it is very common for the landlord to ask for 1 month of rent in advance, 1 month as a deposit, and in some cases, a real estate agency commission. This means that if a room costs, for example, 500 euros, you may have to pay 1,000 or even 1,500 euros just to move in. That is why the first month is usually more expensive than the following ones. 3. Food and groceries. Another important expense is food and groceries. If you cook at home and shop at budget supermarkets, many people spend approximately between 200 and 350 euros per month on food. In Spain, there are fairly affordable supermarkets such as Mercadona, Lidl, or Carrefour, where it is possible to find products at reasonable prices. Of course, if you eat out frequently, the cost can be higher. 4. Public transportation. Public transportation in many Spanish cities works quite well and is usually one of the most affordable ways to get around. For example, in cities like Madrid or Barcelona, a monthly transportation pass can cost approximately between 25 and 60 euros, depending on the area and possible discounts. This normally includes access to the metro, buses, and urban trains. 5. Phone, internet, and basic expenses. Another expense that appears during the first month is phone service and internet connection. Many people get a mobile plan that can cost approximately between 10 and 25 euros per month, depending on the provider and the data package. In addition, there are also small day-to-day expenses such as personal care products, occasional transportation, or basic purchases to settle into the new home. 6. A realistic budget for the first month. If we add up all these expenses, the first month living in Spain usually requires more money than the following months. An approximate calculation for many people could be Accommodation plus deposit, 1,000 to 1,500 euros. Food, 200 to 350 euros. Transportation, 25 to 60 euros. Phone and basic expenses, 30 to 80 euros. In total, many people need approximately between 1,300 and 2,000 euros for the first month, depending on the city and the type of accommodation they find. This estimate may vary, but it serves as a realistic reference for those who are planning to emigrate. As we have seen in this video, the first month living in Spain is usually the most expensive because you are not only paying the normal monthly expenses, but also several initial costs that appear when you arrive. Between the rent, the deposit, food, transportation, and other basic expenses, many people need approximately between 1,300 and 2,000 euros for their first month, depending on the city and the type of accommodation they find. The purpose of this video is not to discourage anyone, but to help people plan the emigration process better. Moving to another country can be a great opportunity, but it is always much better to do it with a clear idea of the real expenses. Because when you have good financial planning from the beginning, adapting to the new country is usually much easier. Now, I would like to ask you something in the comments. Which other country would you like us to make a video like this about? I'll read you in the comments. And if you are thinking about moving to Europe, or you are interested in learning more about what living in different European countries is really like, do not forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, because at Living Europe, we will keep sharing useful information for those who want to begin a new chapter on this continent. See you in the next video.